So Matthew Berry, it's really a pleasure to have you at NBC Sports. I think that most of the sporting world probably said, how exactly did this happen? I mean, isn't ESPN Nirvana? So I just wanted to start off by saying, how did we get you? What happened? How are you? How are you in the family now?
Well, I'm thrilled to be here. And I mean, Peter, you and I had a conversation. You and I have been friends for a long time. And I remember talking to you and I said, I have been talking to some people. What do you think about NBC? And you said you will love it here. They will not let you fail. They will put you in a position to succeed. And the all the comments you made about some of the people, the personnel, the culture at NBC were echoed by a lot of people, including some former ESPNers that are now here that I had reached out to and talked to. So look, it happened in the sense that there were two things that were really important to me in terms of talk about the money, in terms of talking with everyone, and which was I wanted to be part of NFL coverage, and I wanted to be able to continue to do sort of my side businesses that I'd started. I was in a 7-year contract with ESPN. And in my previous contract, which was negotiated by a previous regime there at ESPN, I had carve-outs to start my fantasy life business, my fantasylife.com, fantasy life app, the fantasy life newsletter, a lot of different tools, all 100% free. I'll throw in a plug. They're all 100% free, and they help fantasy players win. So whether it's fantasylife.com or fantasylifeapp.com, check them out. And so these are now growing businesses. Like they have full-time employees, they have CEOs, they've raised money from venture capital and other investors. And so it was important for me to be able to continue to stay with it. And ESPN offered me a new contract, a 3-year extension with a raise. But they basically said, we want you to keep doing exactly what you're doing. And exactly what I was doing was not being a part of ESPN's NFL coverage. And they wanted me to focus just on ESPN. They didn't want me to continue to have these side businesses. So in order to continue with ESPN, I would have had to, and again, they offered me a raise, and I'd been there 15 years, and I helped build, the place being ESPN Fantasy. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears there. Loved a lot of people there. Still love, I shouldn't use past tense, still love a lot of the people there. Loved my day-to-day and working. But at the end of the day, what I realized was what I wanted to do was I wanted to be happy. And the things that make me happiest, that at this stage of my career, I really wanted to challenge, and I wanted some different things. And so it was important to me to be a part of NFL coverage and to be able to continue to have an entrepreneurial side to me. And ESPN did not want those things to happen. And that just wasn't in the cards for me at ESPN. I'll just leave it at that. And but at NBC it was. And in a lot of places it was, to be candid. A lot of, I got a lot of nice offers, which was very nice. But for me, when NBC said, we will put you on football night in America, we will let you, not only will we let you keep your side businesses, we will help promote them. They mentioned how Cris Collinsworth owns Pro Football Focus, and they pointed to that as an example of working with a talent that was important to them, and allowing that talent to have a side business that was important to that talent, the way PFF obviously is to Cris. And, so from that, along with everything that I heard from, again, like people like you and from some of my friends that used to work at ESPN and now worked at NBC, hearing about the culture, there are a few people that work at NBC that I knew from previous stops. I'm returning home, Roto World. I started my career at Roto World. Rick Cordella, the great Rick Cordella from Peacock. Him and I started at Roto World at the very first same week, like in late 1999. So, I've known Rick Cordella for over 20 years, and so, so just a lot of things, it just made total sense for me. And and I say this with no disrespect to anyone else, but professionally, I've never been happier than I am right now.
Fantastic. So good to hear. I want to get into some granular things about this fantasy football season. And I want to run 5 things. Let's do a quick lightning round to start because I'm going to run 5 things that when I went on my training camp tour, I came off it and I felt very strong
Okay,
feelings about 5 specific things.
sure.
I'm just going to throw them out to you, and I want you to tell me yes, no, maybe, unsure. Okay, number 1, probably the player I was most excited about was a receiver for Minnesota named KJ Osborne. And the reason is I think everybody views Minnesota as kind of a receiver pecking order. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, then maybe Irv Smith, the tight end, and Osborne. I think Osborne to me is right here with Adam Thielen, and because Thielen has been getting hurt a little bit, I'm a little bit raising up, knowing that the head coach, they could throw 700 times, knowing that the head coach is really going to throw it a lot. I think Osborne could be a star.
I'm on board with that because I've been very bullish on the entire Vikings offense this year. I think they take a big step up here. I've mentioned how Kirk Cousins is one of only 6 quarterbacks in the NFL to throw over 30 touchdown passes each of the last 2 years. And he did it last year when Minnesota was bottom 14 in pass rate. Mike Zimmer's a head coach, more defensive minded, more conservative. KOC comes in. I agree with you. They're going to throw it a lot. That is a sneaky offense that I think really takes the next step this year. Love Cousins. Obviously, I have Jefferson at wide receiver too. I think people are sleeping on Thielen. I like the call on KJ Osborne.
Reborn player of the year, JuJu Smith-Schuster, Kansas City.
100% on board. Over 300 targets are available in that Kansas City offense with Tyreek Hill, Byron Pringle, Demarcus Robinson, Darrell Williams, all moving on. Over 300 targets from Patrick Mahomes. And I know they added some pieces. MVS, they drafted Sky Moore. They've got some more players in the backfield. I get it. But JuJu Smith-Schuster, never underestimate what it means getting a quarterback upgrade for a wide receiver. We saw the most extreme example of it last year with Cooper Kupp, who went from Jared Goff to Matthew Stafford and had, one of the greatest seasons in NFL history for a wide receiver. That was the most extreme example. And so JuJu Smith-Schuster going from last year Ben Roethlisberger, the last 2 years Ben Roethlisberger, who was past his prime, to be kind, to Patrick Mahomes. I'm all in on JuJu as well. I think he has a monster season here. People forget he is still only 25 years old and how good he was his first 2 years in the league.
Matthew, there's one other thing when you discuss all those things. So the day I was at practice, and I wrote about this in my column, I expected to see JuJu plugged into the slot, because that's what he played 78% of the time his last 2 years in Pittsburgh. I would say he was in the slot 1/3 of the time. Yeah. He was all over the formation. And the 2 things I came away from there thinking is that JuJu Smith-Schuster could look a lot like Travis Kelce in this offense, because Kelsey's all over the place.
Yeah.
And the other thing I thought leaving that place is that Sky Moore is going to be a really odd but very effective weapon if he stays healthy, because I'm not saying he's going to be Deebo Samuel, but I am saying he's definitely going to line up in the back. I think he's going to line up all over the place. Wow. So Kansas City really interests me. Matthew, this is one interesting thing. Okay. So I'm doing something in my column, either this coming week or next week, about Patrick Mahomes and Whoop. Okay. Whoop is this fitness device that you wear on your wrist, and it judges, your heart rate. It judges everything. It's an amazing device. I use it, and not to the same level as Patrick Mahomes. But the interesting thing is, this year, Patrick Mahomes in training camp, his sleep was down over all of last year and last year in training camp.
Huh.
And the reason it was down, and I talked to him in training camp, he's got 4 new receivers to get ready to go opening day.
Right.
They got 2 games in the first 5 days of the season. They got the Thursday night game against the Chargers. They got 2 huge games.
Yeah.
And so he is working. He's a coach. So I look, I think Kansas City is going to be really good again. I don't know how far they'll go, but anyway, I think they'll be good. Okay. My third thing. I often look now when I look at second round receivers, it's different than it was even 5, 7, 8 years ago. Second round receivers are playing, and they're going to play right now. And the one guy out of all the guys picked in the second round, and I know there's a lot of good ones, I really kind of fell in like with Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts. And I want to know, what do you think of him? What do you hear about him?
Loved his college tape. Thought the Colts got a steal with him. The question about Alec Pierce isn't talent, but there's 2 questions. Number one is Paris Campbell, because in the preseason so far, Paris Campbell seems to be running more with it when they go just 2 wide.
Yeah.
Than when they go 3 wide, it's Paris Campbell, it's Alec Pierce, and of course Michael Pittman. So Pittman's always going to be there. So the question is, when they go 2 wide, is it Pierce or is it Paris Campbell, who's tried trouble staying healthy, but Campbell's really talented. The second thing is does this offense, is this off for fantasy? We know Michael Pittman's the number 1, and we know he's going to get his. But is this offense going to be fantasy friendly enough, pass heavy enough to support 2 fantasy relevant wide receivers? Because we know that they want to run the ball. I've heard Frank Reich talk about Taylor can't run as much as he did last year, but we still expect Jonathan Taylor to be one of the bell cows of the NFL. You're hearing Mo Alley Cox. I'm obsessed with Mo Alley Cox, trying to make him a thing. Feels like this might be finally his year. And we keep hearing, Frank Reich said, I don't play fantasy, but if I did, boy, I'd draft Nyheim Hines. So we expect Nyheim Hines to be used more in the passing game, even when Taylor is in the backfield. So from a dynasty fantasy football perspective, absolutely love Alec Pierce. And don't discount the idea that Pierce could emerge. I'm just not ready. So I think I would say maybe yes on the talent, not sure yet on the role. But I hear you about Pierce, because a lot of people smarter than me I know also love his tape. So there's no question about the talent. It's just about the opportunity for me.
Speaking of the Colts, after having been there and I heard what Frank Reich said, I also had a 2-hour lunch with Frank Reich.
Okay.
And I came away from there thinking, you cannot take anybody else if you've got the first pick in the draft other than Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Who would you take if you had the first pick in a fantasy draft?
I have Jonathan Taylor at 1. If you took Christian McCaffrey at 1, if you took Cooper Kupp, I'm not looking at you weird, but I have Jonathan Taylor at 1. I think he has the close to the upside of Christian McCaffrey without the risk.
I mean, I would never take McCaffrey 1. I just can't. I can't do it. Just I'm not saying that he's breaking down, but it's like if you're in a pool for who's going to lead the NFL in sacks, I'm probably not taking Khalil Mack near the top, even though I think he could really be great. He's 31 years old and right. Coming off missing 10 games with a foot injury. And look, I'm not saying that that's going to happen to McCaffrey, but man, I think he's risky. I don't think Jonathan Taylor is anywhere near as risky. Here's the last thing. Derek Carr is a top 5 fantasy quarterback. What do you think of that?
Can't get on board with that. I get the argument. I'll make the argument for you, and then I'll just tell you why I don't think it happens. But the argument for you is that here's a guy that was a top 12, borderline top 10 fantasy quarterback last year, and that was without Devontae Adams, one of, if not the best wide receiver in football, and without Josh McDaniels. You think about what Derek Carr went through last year, the Gruden mess, right? Henry Ruggs, like all this missing Darren Waller for basically the second half of the year. Derek Carr, both on the field and off the field, went through, things that most NFL quarterbacks never have to deal with. And he went through them multiple times. And yet he still led his team to the playoffs, still had a monster season. So now more stability in the franchise. Again, an offensive play caller that's really creative in Josh McDaniels. The addition of one of, if not the best wide receiver in football, plus returning talent like Hunter Renfrow, like Darren Waller. There's a lot to like about Derek Carr. So that's the argument there. Plus he's playing in the best division in football. Like you're not getting out of the AFC West 13-10. Like you're not grinding those kind of games out, right?
That's right. That's
right. You're not going against Justin Herbert and
so I'm dying to know now why you don't think he's a top 5 guy.
Because he doesn't run. Is the simple reason that he doesn't run, and it is very, very hard to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback if you don't run. You think about the elite of the elites. It's Josh Allen, it's Lamar Jackson, it's Kyler Murray, it's Patrick Mahomes who will get you a couple hundred yards, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers had 7 rushing touchdowns last year. The only way you get into the top 5 as a non-mobile quarterback, by non-mobile, I mean somebody that doesn't get, fantasy points with the legs. I mean, Justin Herbert will get you, is mobile as well, right? Not to the extent of Josh Allen or Kyler Murray, but, Herbert, Mahomes, those guys get you points with their legs. The way you get there is with just massive passing touchdown upside. You got to be Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. You got to pass, you got to have north of 40 touchdowns and, in the neighborhood of 5,000 yards. And I just don't, that's a big task for Derek Carr to get to. When you think about, you just told me you think Mahomes is going to have a huge year.
Yeah.
I'm all in on Justin Herbert this year.
Justin Herbert's going to have a huge year.
He's going to have a huge year. Josh Allen. We think Josh Allen is going to be awesome.
He's going to have a huge year.
Yeah. You got Lamar Jackson playing for a contract. He wants the best contract in football, and I get it, right? Like, I think Lamar Jackson has a monster year. You got Brady and Rodgers coming back, okay? You got Kyler Murray, who wants to prove his big deal, and Kyler should have a pretty big year. Again, it's a long list, and in fact, now I didn't even mention Joe Burrow, right? And, who's got probably as good a wide receiver core as anyone in the NFL. And we talked earlier in the show about Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
I think I have Kirk Cousins ranked ahead of Derek Carr because over 4,000 yards passing, 6 of the last 7 years, 30 touchdown passes each of the last 2. Here's the list of 6 quarterbacks that have thrown 30 touchdown passes each of the last 2 years. Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Kirk Cousins. Like, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things.
Yeah, I know. I get it.
Like Cousins never gets mentioned with those 5 guys, and I get it. I understand it, but numbers are numbers. And now he gets KOC, and he's got Jefferson and Thielen and an emerging KJ Osborne. So I understand. I just Carr. I like him. I disagree.
I just think that if I think Derek Carr is going to throw for 5,000 yards and 35 touchdowns, I would bet, this is just a bet,
okay,
that there will not be, if he does that, there won't be more than 4 others who do that. And you're right, that doesn't mean that because he doesn't run, if Mahomes does it and also runs for 530 yards,
right,
which may be a little bit heavy, but I get it. I get it.
If Patrick Mahomes runs for 350 yards and call it 3 rushing touchdowns, that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, listen. There's 2 other guys. We didn't even get to Trey Lance. I mean, Trey Lance could have a monster fantasy season. It could be an okay NFL season, but because of his rushing, Trey Lance could have a monster fantasy season. And I see a Seattle Seahawks helmet behind you there, Peter. We didn't even talk about Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
In the thin air of Mile High. Yeah. Russell Wilson finally allowed to
he's got a very good receiving core. But I'll say this, and again, I have great respect for Trey Lance and all that, but Matthew, there's going to be some growing pains in San Francisco, like a lot of them. My favorite stat of the preseason is that in the 4 years since Trey Lance graduated from a mid-level high school in the state of Minnesota.
Yep.
In the 4 years since, he has thrown 389 passes in games. It's just, and he threw the vast majority of those at a Division I AA school. And I'm not trying to set this guy up for failure. What I'm trying to do is to tell everybody, hey, listen, I think Kyle Shanahan is going to manage and have guardrails on Trey Lance to make sure he succeeds. But we'll see. Hey, I want to just give you an opportunity now, because people who listen to this will want to know, look, I need three people right now who I must prioritize in my draft, who probably are listed as maybe lower picks, and Matthew Berry might like them 2 or 3 rounds higher. A Ramondre Stevenson, a Chase Edmonds. Well, even though both those guys wouldn't be 3 rounds lower, but because they're running backs. But can you take one guy at running back, one guy at wide receiver, and one quarterback who you like more than the masses do?
Sure. I mean, I can do that for all the positions. I'll say, let's see, at running back, somebody that I think is going way too late is I'll give you one. Hey, how about Darrell Henderson?
Yeah.
Darrell, I mean, I by the way, I'm team Ramondre. I have Ramondre Stevenson ranked ahead of Damian Harris. Damian Harris is being drafted ahead of Ramondre Stevenson. I think Ramondre Stevenson has a special season, so I'll just leave it at that. But you think about Darrell Henderson, who through the first 8 weeks of last year was a top 10 fantasy running back on a points per game basis. And now he's just being left for dead and being drafted outside the top 40 among running backs on Yahoo.
That is nuts. That's nuts.
Cam Akers we're not sure that Cam Akers starts the year with the Rams. And I think at best, I think this, by the way, I think we're way over drafting Cam Akers. I think he's being drafted way too high. But I think at best, you're talking about a running back by committee where Henderson and Akers both get run. I think McVay wants to use multiple running backs because he's had to deal with injuries over the last couple of years. And so at worst, he's got half of the running back share of one of the best, duos in one of the best run games in the NFL. And at best, Akers is slow to come back from injury. Henderson gets the gig. He runs with it, no pun intended. And McVay's like, as long as you're healthy, you're going to be the guy. And we'll sprinkle in Akers the way that's what happened, last year when Akers went down. Henderson proved he could be an every down guy until he got banged up. So I would say him at running back is
not only that, but just think about it. And you talked about what he was, in the first 10 weeks. I mean, here's a guy who averaged 4.6 a carry, and he did not run behind the best run blocking line. So I totally agree with you. I think that's a great pick.
Thank you very much. So, I mean, a wide receiver, I could do like a million. Can I give you?
So those that give 100% to fall.
Can I give you a sorry, that was my computer absolutely going to I will give you I'll give you like a couple other I mean, listen, I believe the Dameon Pierce hype. I'm in on that. I actually I'll give you another one. Speaking of injuries, I don't understand why Rashad Penny's going so low. I think when he was originally slotted in, it's because people thought, well, Chris Carson's going to be there and Ken Walker, and look at, Geno Smith at quarterback. How good is this offense going to be? Rashad Penny was a top 5 fantasy running back over the last 5-6 games of the year. Just an absolute beast. He needs to stay healthy, of course, but Ken Walker's banged up, so he's missing valuable preseason time in terms of pass pro and just learning the playbook. Obviously, Chris Carson isn't there. They've got Travis Homer and DJ Dallas, but those guys are complementary players. I believe this is going to be Rashad Penny's job until it's not. And that's somebody who's going very, very late as well. So those are guys. In terms of wide receivers, I mean, how deep do you want to go? Listen, I'll give you, how about I'm all in on Gabriel Davis, right? I mean, I'm all in on.
Good for you.
Absolutely love Gabriel Davis. I'm a big Rashad Bateman guy this year. I love Allen Robinson's going outside the top 20. I think he's a top 15 play. I'm Chris Godwin people leaving Chris Godwin for dead. We already talked about JuJu. I love JuJu Smith-Schuster, but Chris Godwin's going like wide receiver 33. He's going outside the top 30.
That's a huge mistake.
Godwin, like he's a top 10 fantasy wide receiver. Even if he misses a game or two, even if he's slightly slow, he's Chris Godwin coming back to play with Tom Brady with honestly more targets available. And so, that's one that doesn't make a ton of sense to me as well. And I'll give you a couple other deep sleepers. I think you'll like. Listen, I love Jalen Tolbert in Dallas. I think he's going to have a big year there. I think I can tell you that Josh Palmer. We talk about the Chargers. We like that offense quite a bit. I think both George Pickens and Chase Claypool coming out of the slot. Claypool being out of the slot this year is just going to be a major mismatch there. And people are always like, "Well, but Trubisky. Trubisky's an upgrade." Trubisky is an upgrade over what Big Ben was last year. The Steelers will have a better offense.
Ben Roethlisberger is going to put a contract out on you.
Well, if Ben Roethlisberger does put a contract on me, that means he didn't watch football last year. Because listen, Big Ben is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He was not a good quarterback last year.
Yeah.
He was not a good NFL quarterback last year. And then I'll give you, I think Christian Kirk is somebody that's going to, I love Trevor Lawrence this year. There's a quarterback that I'll give you that we haven't mentioned who's going in the mid to late rounds. They have a top 10 easy schedule. They're going to be throwing a ton under Doug Peterson, a former NFL quarterback, former Andy Reid disciple, former Super Bowl winning coach. They're going to throw a ton. Christian Kirk's going to get a zillion targets. So I really like Christian Kirk, who's sort of being forgotten. But how about two names? I'm going to give you two names, Peter, that I know you'll like. Romeo Doubs and Wan'Dale Robinson.
Yes, baby. Yes, I love both of them.
I know you do. The reason I have those names is because Peter King was on the Roto-World Draft Guide show, and we said, Peter, you went to your training camp tour. Give us some sleepers. And you said to me, you talked about Romeo Doubs. I'll let you talk about it here. And the last thing you said at your end of your segment is like, just do me a favor with your last pick. Make sure you draft Wan'Dale Robinson and thank me later. That's a quote from Peter King.
Yeah. Hey, look, Dobbs, here's the interesting part about him. So, Matthew, he got dogged out of college because people thought that he was slow and people thought he kind of spit the bit at the scouting combine. And so he goes to Green Bay, and LaFleur told me that, he's in here by 5:45 in the morning.
Wow.
He is dying to learn everything about the offense. So when he gets out on the field, he's going to be where Aaron Rodgers wants him to be. I wrote this today in this week in my column that I saw him referred to somewhere, and I forget where, as a super sleeper. I said, well, you're nuts. A super sleeper. I mean, if you want to pick him low, go ahead. But by the end of the year, he'll be a top 25 wide receiver in the NFL. I would be shocked if he isn't. Now, before we go, I'm just going to ask you about one other guy. So in my calls, in my visits, everything, there's somebody who doesn't make logical sense to pick high in a fantasy draft, and I get it. But I think if Isaiah Likely is on the board when you pick in the last round of your draft, even though you'd be taking definitely a second wide receiver, or a second tight end in Baltimore because of Mark Andrews, just remember one thing. The offensive coordinator and play caller is Greg Roman, who is a conservative play caller. It's one of the reasons that Marquise Brown isn't there anymore. He didn't want to really take the handcuffs off the offense. So he wanted to be a little safer. I think you're going to see more two tight end formations in Baltimore than on any team in the league. And Isaiah Likely, in essence, is going to be like somebody's third receiver. That's what I think.
By the way, completely agree with you on Isaiah Likely. Think about this. Marquise Brown leaves. He goes to Arizona. They don't really do anything in free agency or the draft to add anyone of real note. I mean, we'll see if Demarcus Robinson does anything, but really, I mean, the truth of the matter is that their pecking order is Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and then probably Isaiah Likely. There are 148 targets that Marquise Brown that are available from last year that are no longer there. 148 targets. Now, the Ravens were much more pass happy last year than I think they want to be. But to your point, this is a team that wants to run 12 as much as they can. They want to do 2 tight end sets quite a bit because they are so run heavy. And because when they're in the 2 tight end sets, if you're a defense, you're like, well, what are they doing? Are they running? Is this going to be a sweep with Lamar? Are they going up the gut with Dobbins or Gus Edwards when he comes back? Mike Davis? What are they doing? Oh, no, they're going to play action. And now you've got to deal with Andrews and Likely and Bateman. So I'm really high on Bateman again because of the same target share. And I know they really like Bateman. Yeah. But I agree with you on Isaiah Likely. I'm in a dynasty league, which is one of those leagues where you keep, it's a super deep league where it's 12 teams, 33-man rosters. And we do the rookie draft. So you keep every player, you keep all 33 players year after year after year after year. And so you do the rookie draft before the NFL draft. So you have to draft rookies without knowing where they've landed. This is the rules of this league. So that when I tell you there's no one available, there's no one available. But this year there actually was. So we do the draft before the NFL draft, and then rosters are frozen until like this past week. And so this year there were a couple guys that popped that actually weren't drafted. Isaiah Pacheco, Romeo Doubs, and Isaiah Likely. Pacheco, of course, the 7th-round rookie out of Rutgers in Kansas City. He's part of the running back mix there. We talked about Doubs in Green Bay, and of course now Likely. My league gives a point and a half per reception for tight ends. So it's a tight end. It's what's called the tight end premium league. And you're given a budget for free agents. You're given $1,000 that you're supposed to use over the entire course of the year. Peter, I spent every single dollar I had to get Isaiah Likely. This is a week ago.
Good for you.
I feel the same way you did.
Yeah.
I'm like, this kid's, everyone's like, he's going to be behind Andrews. Andrews is young. And I'm like, I don't think you understand. 100%. They're going to run 2 tight end sets. He's going to be the number 3 wide receiver on one of the better offenses in the NFL. In a league with tight end where you get fantasy points for tight ends. If you're looking for a deep tight end sleeper, I'm with you on Isaiah Likely.
Yeah. I don't even think he's that much of a sleeper because I believe when you look at the stats at the end of the year that there will only be 2 wide receivers on this team who will have more targets than Isaiah Likely, which if I know that, or if that's true and the quarterback is Lamar Jackson and the play caller is Greg Roman, Isaiah Likely is going to score some points for you. Matthew, listen, I've kept you way, way past what I said we would keep you. We could do it for 6 hours, but I really appreciate you taking the time, educating people about their draft. People, if you listen to this and you do what Matthew Berry tells you, you will win your league. And I guarantee you win your league. And if you don't win your league, just be in touch with me. I'll give you your money back.
There you go, 100%. And by the way, if they need more, if they're like, well, I enjoyed this, but I want more. The Fantasy Football Happy Hour airs every day live at noon on Peacock, and then it's on demand, both clips and full episodes on demand, not only on Peacock, not only on the new NFL on NBC YouTube channel, but also wherever you get your podcast. So wherever you're listening to this, you can also listen to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry. We'd love for you to subscribe, rate us, give us a comment, like, subscribe. You don't actually have to listen to it. Just download it. We just want the clip.
Hey, listen, Matthew, thanks a million. We'll talk to you during the year.
Sounds great, Peter. Thanks so much.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.